waste items. But there are, however, infrastructure deficits or disparities, and so it affects the handling of e-waste. So, for example, upcyclers putting in place measures to collect and treat these items, in a very professional, in a very um, appropriate way or sustainable way, you find actors also not having the capacity to do so. And so at times, many of these courses are very important too. At least there are some basic things we can learn. If I cannot manage them myself, why not? If there is a formal recycling center or plant, the only thing I do is get in touch with them for them to count for them instead of disposing them off in the open environment. Okay. But when you look at the whole e-waste sector within the African region, there are two things that come to mind. One is that the sector in terms of revenue generation, the sector in terms of reducing volume of waste, the sector in terms of recycling and extracting valuable metals, to some people is very important. And so it is something that ought to be well integrated into our planning issues or into our management systems. But there are also others who think that when you look at the African region, because we do not have adequate capacity to handle the waste stream, the whole e-waste sector should be closed down because the formal sector is unable. And Agabas made mention that when you read around, you realize that you have less than even 2% of the waste generated or waste we find within our system officially collected and recycled. What it means is that you find a lot of these items handled by a large informal sector. I'll be showing you some pictures which do not have adequate skills or knowledge to handle them. And so their practices in terms of managing them differ from the formal sector. So there are two schools of thought about what to do with the e-waste sector. Do we allow it to go on because of the revenue it generates, because of how important actors are in minimizing the waste volume generated, or is it because of how bad actors are in handling some of these waste items, leading to severe health and environmental challenges? Should the sector be closed down? You might belong to any of them, but probably maybe after the presentation, we can still will continue with the discussion. Now, let me then move on to some of the management issues and then the challenges within confronting the sector within the African region. Now, this image you see here obviously shows two young men engaged in an activity associated with the e-waste sector. And what they are doing here is that I know there'll be someone to deal with the urban mining and all of that. But what they do is that after dismantling some of these e-waste items, these e-waste items contain valuable metals. Okay, so they are extracted and they are sold. One of them is the wires we find in them. So at time your interaction with them will tell you that they are copper wires that are sold to the market to generate some revenue. And so there are a lot of challenges or issues of concern, but I'll just touch on four of them, but I'll speak on also two because of time. The first issue is the dominance of an informal sector with limited formal recycling. The second issue has to do with legislation and enforcement of the sector. Then infrastructure and technology gaps. Compared to the developed world, there are some countries in Europe that are demanding waste. They run out of waste, and so they want waste to process. But we have abundance of waste here. I don't know what to do with the waste. Okay, so there are infrastructure and technology gaps, and also cross-border e-waste dumping. You find waste moving from one country to the other without going through the necessary scrutiny. And now when you look at the formal and then the informal recycling sector, again, what we see is that Africa is not doing too well when it comes to recycling rates or the formal collection and recycling of e-waste. And so the sector within the African region is dominated by a large informal sector where actors often use unsafe methods. And when I say unsafe methods, there are images I'll be showing to take you through what some of these methods are. This is an image of a formal recycling plant in Rwanda, showing us how organizations or companies handle e-waste items. Okay, so once the items come in, they dismantle them. Those that need repair are repaired. They dismantle them, retrieve valuable metals of them, and all of that. And so what we see is that the image here shows that there is some kind of safety concerns in mind, and these measures are more sustainable and environmentally friendly. Okay, this so a formal way of handling e-waste item, as I showed in the earlier two images, is where waste is properly treated, properly dismantled, and whatever needs to be done with the item is done with it. Now, to the informal sector, I have a video here. I'll ask a question, and then after the presentation, maybe I'll take your views on that. So there's an image here. I hope it plays. There's an image here showing an actor stripping a wire from an e-waste item. Okay, it's just I think a 10-second video. So I hope the video is playing. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yes. And so this is about a 10-second video that in one of the field sites I captured. Now what you see is that the young man here takes the wire through the equipment, and at a point in time also has to use the hand to strip off, the cables to retrieve the copper wire from the item. Yes, this is efficient. This is clean. This is safe. The next image is not a video, it's an image of people undertaking a similar practice of retrieving copper wires, but this time burning the items. Now the question is, if you are an actor within the e-waste space, and you have a truck load of copper wire to retrieve, which of these actors would you go for? One, the one going through a cleaner way of using the wire stripping machine to retrieve the copper wire, or you take it to these guys, they just take it to the site, put fire in it. In a space of about 30 minutes, you get your truckload of copper wire retrieved. So it's a question instead of getting question from you, I'll be asking you a question. So that is a question that I'll take your views on. Okay, so this is how the informal sector largely operates. And so what we see is that within the African region, from e-waste collection to dismantling to recycling and disposal, okay, so I'm talking about the diagram highlighted within the green box space, is where actors basically how the informal sector operates. So within the African region, right from importation of e-waste, the whole activity is largely informal. Okay, with very few formal recycling plan. That is why there's the need to really encourage, formal actors going through the formal way of handling these items. But the informal sector is the backbone of e-waste management in Africa, from collection, dismantling, burning, metal recovery, also because it is creating jobs for a lot of people. And what we see is that about $3.7 billion is generated from the informal sector alone, globally, okay, from the e-waste sector. So it tells you that there's a lot of money within the sector if you do the right thing and get the right connections and all of that. But because the activities are not too safe, a lot of the value they think they are retrieving from these items get lost. And so this is an image showing one stage of the e-waste process, scavenging or collection of e-waste items. So at times you often find people, especially children within the ages of 12 and 16 years, and even as young as 8 years, going around dump sites and scavenging for electronic waste items. Once the items are collected, they are taken to processing sites, okay, also within the informal space. And there are also actors who dismantle these items into various components. And so the e-waste chain creates a lot of job for a lot of young people because it's also a major revenue generation center. But as I said, the issue has to do with how the waste item is handled or the waste item is treated. This is also another practice where this is a site in Accra. So after dismantling and all of that, the unwanted items are dumped off in the open environment, which is not too safe, for people, and it poses a lot of challenges. And this is also another actor or an activity where actors burn some of these items to retrieve the valuable metals they need from them. Without wearing any protective clothing, they're exposing themselves to burns and all of that. But to them, it is a livelihood and they are doing it. Okay. And so there are a lot of study that we have undertaken to understand the management issues and then the challenges. One thing that we notice is that when you visit many of these informal sites within the African region, because of how poor or how unsafe the activities are, the activities contaminate the soil and water, and they expose communities to a lot of hazardous substances. And also the open burning of these items. For example, if you look at the image to the left, okay, the gentleman is very close to the fire, but once these items, because of the makeup of these electronic waste items, they are made up of a lot of chemicals. And so once you get exposed to them, you are getting exposed to toxic substances, so dioxins, heavy metals, hydrocarbons, and all of that. So you get exposed to a lot of harm. And also, the activities also destroy biodiversity and farmlands because actors at times occupy farmlands to do the activities. And so these are also some of the risks. So they dump them in the open environment, they get exposed to fumes or smoke, and people also. So the image to the left here was we went to one site and we captured an image of a young man who has been burning many of these items, and he has burns all over the body. But this is what we could capture to show. So what it tells us is that there are a lot of management challenges and issues regarding the whole sector within the African region. And a notable issue is the issue of e-waste and climate change. Because the items are openly disposed of in the environment and they are not properly treated, there are a lot of emissions and a lot of impact these activities have on climate, and they come back to harm us. The second and the last challenge management issue I'll talk about, or the challenge I'll talk about, has to do with policy and regulatory landscape. Someone will be asking him or herself, if we have all these things, what are, as we often say, what are politicians doing, or what are big people doing? There are a lot of conventions, actually, a lot of them, global, international, regional, sub-regional, a lot of laws and regulations to control the sector. And so when you go to Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Rwanda, there are quite a lot of regulations to kind of manage the sector. But what we often see is that although they exist, there's weak enforcement and loopholes are exploited. As I said, if we get up one day and a country in Europe says that they want to bring us 1 million metric tons of second-hand electronic items, of course, we'll be glad to receive them. But where do these items end up becomes an issue because they are not well tracked. Okay. Now, this image is showing, let's just focus on the map itself. When you pick the African continent, there are only a few countries that have national e-waste related policies and or legislations. What it tells us is that there are about 80% of countries within Africa, okay, going through e-waste management issues without proper policy guidelines to control how waste is handled at various sites. The moment this happens, what it means is that we are opening ourselves to distraction. And even the country that have these regulations have enforcement issues, again, because of the dominance of an informal sector. And so what we often see is that our interaction with some of these actors often says that politicians or people in authority get up and prepare the frameworks or policies without the inclusion of the dominant actors, informal actors. And so they feel excluded and therefore do not adhere to a lot of these things. And these things are evident in across Africa. There are cases in Ghana, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, where people have risen up against, um, policies or regulatory frameworks intended to guide the management of the e-waste sector. what we see is that there is increasing crisis, there's increased volumes of e-waste items, and there's intensified climate risk happening all over. That notwithstanding, I'll be bringing my presentation to a close very soon. That notwithstanding, there are a lot of opportunities the e-waste sector comes along with. And as upcyclers, Agabas mentioned, see, there are a lot of opportunities. And to me, first of all, I looked at the sector as a harmful sector because we are not controlling it well. But my interactions and getting involved in the sector opened my eyes to a lot of things. That the sector presents a circular economy and a green job opportunity. I know that the next speaker will be handling, or the other speakers will be handling that. The sector also has an opportunity of promoting public-private partnerships in recycling, okay, where you get connected to actors who are adopting safer ways of doing things. And the sector also has that digital innovation, okay, around it. So anytime you think of the e-waste sector, think of it as an opportunity, to doing something right. Instead of just disposing of items in the open space, there's something that can be done with the items and the appropriate facilities that exist to handle these things. So to me, I now see the e-waste sector to have a lot of opportunities aside, the risk or the challenges, management issues, regulatory issues associated with the sector. Now to my conclusions and some few suggestions. I'll say that e-waste, yes, is both a challenge and opportunity, which is a fact that we need to embrace. The second is that Africa, because of the opportunity and challenge the e-waste sector brings, Africa as a continent needs to have an inclusive or promote inclusive and circular economy solutions. I know there are ongoing discussions, there are even current attempts or strategies to promote circular economy solutions within the space. What we also need to do is to balance livelihood with environment and health safety issues. In as much as the sector is providing livelihoods to thousands of people, there is the need to pay attention to the environmental and health safety issues as well. And so to some few suggestions based on what is happening within the African region, I'll just touch on two things. The first one, I'll touch on awareness and educational campaigns. And as Agabas mentioned, going on radio to educate the citizenry on e-waste and how important it is, to me, I think is very, very important. And when you get in touch with children within the basic school level, primary school to GHS, a lot of them don't really understand how these things work. But after some interactions with them, they get to appreciate the importance of the sector. So there's the need to always continuously create awareness on the e-waste sector and management issues. Then the last thing I'll talk about is to support a safe informal to formal integration. I don't think that the informal sector should just be pushed away, but there is the need to equip them with the necessary skills and knowledge on how to manage the sector. And so I'll end by saying that waste is not waste. It is just a resource in the wrong place. So there's a need to look for the wrong place and fish out this because waste is a resource. It is just found in the wrong place. Okay, so I'll end by again thanking organizers of this course and thank you my good friend Agabas also for the opportunity. So thank you very much and I hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asibe, for this comprehensive presentation. We will now open the floor for participants. Participants may kindly raise their hands or post questions in the chat.
I think you can speak, Mr. Omar Farouk.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good afternoon to everyone. Please, I have two questions. My first question goes to Mr. Agabas on the e-waste collection. I want to know, the presentation you made highlighted how far Upcyclers has gone in collecting the e-waste. So I want to know, where does the e-waste ends after collecting?
Thank you very much, Mr. Usman. Would you want me to answer, or you pardon?
I said the second question goes to Dr. Osai.
Okay.
Okay. Dr. Osai, thank you for the wonderful presentation. And I must admit that I am captured by the facts you have highlighted, and then it has increased my interest in the sector. So my question goes to where the young man is using a stripping machine, which is highlighted as the good method of e-waste recycling. I'd want to mention that two things happen there. The young man stripping the wire that he needs, that one has value to him. Then what happened to the plastic insulator, which is used to cover the wire? What happens to it? That is my question. So I don't know whether Agabus will tackle my question first, and then Dr. Osaitu would follow up with my second question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think probably Agabus answer will answer your question to mine.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So, Mr. Osman, so within the value chain, whatever we collect after dismantling and sorting the various metals. So within e-waste, there are various components of metal that we can generate out of it. So there is the plastic component, there is the copper, there is the aluminum, and then there is battery. All right. So here there are various refinery manufacturing organizations that take out most of these fractions to refine them into other materials or other products. So for instance, with the plastic components in electronic waste, there are high level recyclers, or we call them refineries, that basically collect most of these plastics. They kind of crush it, they go through a whole lot of processes to basically remanufacture various plastic casings, even tables and chairs that we use in our homes are all bases of most of these various recyclable materials that comes out of this. And then even with the copper, aluminum, especially with the aluminum, this goes to the refineries in Accra, Tema, that they basically uses them to rebuild the building materials, the iron rods, and most of those aspects that we have in our ecosystem. So these are all the ways and mediums at which the waste we collect are basically segmented. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful.
Okay. So let me also attempt to answer the question. So this is let me use WAS because the whole sector they moved them. So this was a center set up by the GIZ in Accra. And what they do is that so after stripping off the wire or the cables from the thing, the insulators are usually kept in sacks. Okay, so they are kept in the container he finds himself. Then there is a truck that comes, takes them, and then there are two formal recycling plants in Accra, and so they are taken to those plants or to those centers. Okay, so in terms of the chain, in terms of the flow, that's what happened. So after this young man is done and getting all the needed things, the insulated cables are put in sacks, and truck comes around, takes them to the former recycling center within the Accra city. Thank you very much once again for the question, Mr. Umar.
So
thank you, Doctor.
We have Nasi Giri. Please, you can unmute and ask your question so that we can move forward to the next speaker.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc. Mine is just about the suggestions and then recommendation that Doc has just made. If you look at Ghana, for instance, this e-waste that we are talking of here is just a major problem in our various cities. But my issue is, what other practical intervention can we exhibit as a country? When we look at our politicians, it's like they are paying lip service in terms of managing all this. But whatever suggestions that doctor have just made are all good and accurate. But the practical way of managing this e-waste is just the major challenge that we are facing. So what can we do as our engineers and other professors that can provide practical solutions to solve this problem? That is my concept.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nasigri. So, what I will say is that, to me, I've come to the realization that whether we like it or not, e-waste volumes will increase. Okay, so we need to admit it. It will come. What I usually encourage, just like Upcyclers has started doing, I think in our own small way, there's something we can do to manage this waste ourselves. If, for example, I'm a household and I cannot handle the waste myself, what do I need to do? I need to get in touch with an established facility to come for the items. After all, the items are just sitting in my house doing nothing. Okay. In Kumasi, those who come around, we call them condemn. I don't know how they are called in Tamale or elsewhere, but the scavengers, we call them condemn. So every morning they'll be calling out, asking for items. What they do is that they look at the item, they look at the skill or the size, the functionality, and they buy them. Unless you want to give them out for free, yes, you can do so. It depends on it. I think there's a question about the operations of upcyclers. I think Agaba, I think there's a question in the chat box. Probably you can respond to. Okay, but practically, this is what I think, and linking that to a question that Mr. Naziru also asked. I think that we shouldn't, the informal sector, there's nothing wrong with the sector. What is informality? Informality does not connote a bad thing. Okay, it's just like a private entity. The fact that I'm a private entity does not make me informal. I only have to go through certain things. And there are ways to doing that. Okay, to me, I think that Ghana or Africa as a continent, we have issues with enforcement and regulation. And so we are not really able to task people to do the right thing. But if I should get up and practically want to do something, as we are here on this platform, what I think we can do is that in our own small way, aside awareness campaign and all of that, if there's the need to link up with some established facilities, to be handling some of these things. For example, if I cannot do that and I can just pick a phone and call Agabas that, look, KNWest, we have some items here. Can you pick them up? Of course, I think it is something they will gladly do, although I'm in Kumasi and will do that. Okay, so I think that to me, we only have to start smaller because the regulations have been with us since. But there are loopholes. And as I said, the volumes of e-waste will still increase. But practically, if there's something we cannot do ourselves, there are people who have established themselves in the field that I think we have to link up with. And to me, I think it will solve a lot of the issues that we have surrounding the sector. So that will be my quick response to your question. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much, Doc. I think we have Ayan Sechofia. You can unmute and ask a question, final question. Hello. I think your name written is Ayan Sechofia. You've raised your hand. Okay. Then over to you, Zekia.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, actually, that's not my name, so I was kind of confused. I'm Fortune, actually, from Nigeria. So I came across this program on LinkedIn, and I felt it's something I can really learn from. So my question is there any future plan of you collaborating with or the upcyclers moving down to Nigeria, or it's just based for Ghana? Because we have a lot of e-waste here. We have a lot of scavengers too that pick up waste. Even there's a particular place around where I stay that there are a lot of waste from all this. They pick up only the metal aspect, and then I think they ship it out. That's how they do. But the other parts are always left as waste, and then the whole place looking disorganized. And I wanted to ask if there's any plan of you extending from Ghana down to Nigeria to other parts of Africa.
Thank you very much, Fortune. So I think it's part of our strategic goal to basically being able to scale across Africa with our current digital platform, which is called Ayat.Africa, would make it possible for we to scale across Africa. The main objective of that platform is to serve as a pan-African platform whereby the various key stakeholders within the value chain can fully operate. And without mentioning this, there are also formal recyclers in Nigeria that we know. I think Henkely is in Lagos that basically collects electronic waste, and there are quite some number of recyclers we basically know that are doing great job in Nigeria as well. But then we are open for various collaborations and seeing how we can have our footprint also in Nigeria, because we believe that Nigeria market is really, really a huge market. So we can basically look at how we can get strategic partners through there that will be able to use our Qatar solution to scale across such countries as well. So yeah, there's something we are planning on.
Thank you so much for the response. I really appreciate it. Okay, is there a way I can also volunteer, probably come in, but going to be a remote thing? I know I'm not based in Ghana, so but I'm highly interested in it. Because I studied a course in environmental science and resource management. It has always been on my mind how to reduce waste, recycle waste, and all of those things. That was why I even joined this meeting.
That's perfect. That's perfect. There is various opportunity for internship attachment and even working remotely. So you can send us an email. Just posted our email on the chat. You can send us an email and we can move forward from there.
Thank you.
Great. Zakia.
Thank you all for your contributions. Now let's welcome our next speaker, Ms. Betty Piabaya, who is a doctoral researcher at United Nations University, Germany. Her research focuses on the environmental footprint of electronic industry in the global south, applying the resource Nexus as analytical tool. Ms. Betty brings both academic rigor and practical experience in e-waste governance and will speak on urban mining, recovering value from e-waste. Dr. Betty, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Zakia. I'm about to share my screen, but unfortunately, I am not yet a doctor, so you can just call me Betty for now. It's a long way.
You'll be.
It's a long way to becoming a doctor. Please, can you see my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I want to first ask a question. If you can just put the response in the chat box. Let me also see if I can show my video. If I gave you a bar of gold, what would you do with it? Agabas, I will be glad if you can help with the responses because I'm sharing my screen. So just quickly put in the chat box, if I gave you a bar of gold, what would you do with it? Maybe some 2 or 3 responses and then we can continue.
Thank you. So we have, I'll sell it, yeah, sell it for cash. I would refine it and make it more valuable from Mr. Edbet, and then we have trade it off to cash and invest the money. So I think
Okay.
most of us are saying we'll invest the money.
Okay, so if I gave you a spoiled mobile phone, what would you do with it? Quickly. Let's do this quickly so that we can continue. If I gave each of you a spoiled mobile phone, what would you do with it? And be sincere.
Harold said she'll repair it if possible. I think we have
Okay.
I'll throw it away. Repair if possible. Repair it if I can
Okay, the
throw it
person who
away.
says they'll throw it away, where are you going to throw your mobile phone? Where are you going to throw it away? I'm interested and curious to know. Whilst we wait for those responses, I'll quickly just dive into my presentation. My name is Betty Piembaya, and I am a doctoral researcher at United Nations University in Dresden, Germany. And my research work is focused on the environmental footprint of the electronic industry. In the past 4 years, I have worked in Ghana as a project manager, and my projects that I was managing were mostly on e-waste management. So I would not say I am a guru in e-waste management, but let's see what I have for you today. My presentation is going to take this outline. Unfortunately, I am not very academic yet, like Dr. Sibe, so I'm keeping mine very simple and short. We're going to look at what urban mining means, and then we look at the global metal recovery. Most of the things that I planned to talk about have already been covered, so and if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat box, and then we can continue. But when we talk about urban mining, what is urban mining? I wasn't sure the kind of audience that we had today, so I decided to break it down from what is urban and then what is mining. When we talk about urban, it is just like an area, a region that is surrounding a city. So in Ghana, we can see that Accra is more of an urban area. Most of the capital cities that we have in Ghana are urban areas. Even my home region, why is why is an urban area? And what is mining? When we talk about mining, we are talking about extracting materials from or minerals from the surface of the earth. And usually it requires most of the materials that we mine are things that we cannot grow, like food. If we need maize, we can grow plants and then they grow and then we harvest them. But most of these materials are things that we cannot mine, grow, and then we cannot create them in the laboratory as well. And some of the things that we mine include coal, oil, and so on and so forth. You guys already know them. And then, so what is urban mining? When we talk about urban mining, it simply refers to recovering valuable materials from our discarded waste, recovering valuable materials from waste. And one important thing I want you to remember or take away with you is that if these precious or metals or materials are not recovered from these waste, they eventually end up in our landfills, or sometimes they just end up in incineration. So when you think about urban mining, I want you to have this picture of, instead of digging a hole in the ground to recover some precious minerals or whatever, we are digging into our old laptops, our mobile phones, our what do they call this? Anything that is electronic, right? Even though some of them have very negative value when you try to recycle them. So it means that when we, what I also want you to remember is that when we are doing this urban mining, we are trying to minimize our reliance on virgin resources. And then it also helps to reduce the environmental impact of primary mining. So it is particularly important for us to do this urban mining because it addresses some of the challenges of e-waste that we currently face in Ghana. And then it also focuses on the materials that are already in use. Like sometimes people recover precious minerals from buildings, electronics, and other products. But for the purpose of this presentation, we are going to focus on the values that we can get from electronics. So in the year 2022 alone, it was said that there were 6.6 billion use of smartphones. And so you ask yourself, when all of these smartphones come to an end, what happens to them? Most of them are supposed to be recycled, and then we recover the precious minerals from them. Unfortunately, they may end up in our landfills. Some people keep their mobile phones in their homes when they spoil and they don't do anything with it. And Africa alone generates 2.9 million tons of e-waste annually. So imagine if we are generating this amount of waste annually, and then we have the ability, we have the techniques and the technology to recycle these things. You can imagine the amount of valuables that we are going to recover from them. And then in Ghana, like Dr. Asibe mentioned, the informal sector dominates in the recycling or in the urban mining, and they use very rudimentary methods and crude methods like burning and dismantling. We've seen a lot of these photos already, but you just have to remember that e-waste is also like hidden treasure because you can find gold, there is copper, there is silver, there's lithium, and a lot of other rare earth elements, right? In these things, in these electronics, especially the ones that come to the end of life. Dr. Asibe already showed this one, so I'll just skip it quickly and show you currently how is urban mining done in Ghana. You've already seen some of these pictures in Dr. Asibe's slide. It so happens that the pictures are always similar. So when you go to the scrap yards where these urban mining activities are being carried out, you see children of school-going age. We already heard that girls, and it is very sad to realize that some of these children are even being abused on the scrap yards. And I already mentioned that they are using very rudimentary methods, but this is not what we want to see. If we say that these things have value and they have precious metals in them, then this is not the best way to handle them. Urban mining has always been with us. People have been doing these things. We've seen some of these pictures before. You've seen people like vehicles. If you see the mechanic, what do they call their place? The fitters. If you go to where they do their work, you see some of these things, and it will surprise you to note that most of these things are usually there because they have value. They don't throw them away. They will eventually sell them, and people will recycle them and use them. And these days, urban mining is gaining a lot of popularity, especially in the Global South country, and my research is already focused on the Global South. And it is not a secret that primary mining is now becoming very expensive, and it is becoming unsustainable. We have all heard about the issues of galamsey in Ghana and all the drama that comes with the galamsey. Recently, I was discussing something with one of my colleagues in the office, and she told me she went to a workshop here in Germany, and there was somebody from a different country. I was talking about how there is this neo-colonialism and Chinese are in Ghana and doing a lot of galamsey and all of that. And then there was a Ghanaian in the room. There was also a Chinese in the room. Then it became a banter between the Ghanaian and the Chinese. The two of them are not even in Ghana. They are not in China, but they are in Germany, and they are battling about issues of galamsey between Ghana and China in a different country. So how can we contribute, or how can we support urban mining? I think somebody already asked a question on this, and like what we are doing today, we can always do education and awareness creation. And one thing I want to emphasize on today is that when you leave this meeting, don't just let whatever you heard here end here. If you will not even practice the things that we are talking about here, but try to preach them. So 2 P's, you practice and preach. But I just don't want you either choose one or you do both. You either practice or you preach, but it would be good if we practice and then we preach as well. And then sometimes there is this craze for new electronics. Recently iPhone 17 was released. People have other iPhones, but because there is a new iPhone, they have to hold the new iPhone, right? But we can always use our electronics for long. It doesn't mean that when there is a new release, we have to go for those ones. If you can, use your electronics till maybe, and then we can always repair them. If you feel that you can no longer use them too, you can always donate them to other people who need them. And then when you want to dispose responsibly. You can always donate or hand them over to e-waste certified collectors. In Ghana, we don't have a lot of them, but I'll mention something about that briefly. And then reduce consumption and buy smart. This is always an argument because people are like, no, you don't. We want to have this. We want our lives to be easier. If we can have a robot in our home that is doing the work. But also ask yourself, when these things come to the end of life, what happened to them? I wasn't thinking like this in the past. So I was always thinking, oh, I want a smart fridge, I want a smart kitchen, I want a smart hall, the one that's when you are even sitting in your chair, you are being massaged and all of these things. But let's try to reduce our consumption, buy smart. And if you also want to buy, look for electronics that are most likely to last longer. I think these days you're able to tell by some of the warranties. Okay, and then there are also some brands that opt for take back. I know Nokia in China, when you buy your product from them, you can always return at the end of the life of that product. So we can always buy from those people. And then you can also participate in a recycling program. If you know of any, or if you see or hear of anything that has to do with recycling of electronics. Dr. Asibe was talking about the condemned people. When I was in Ghana, most of the time, when I have electronics, I would just leave them by my husband and they will come and pick it. They always come around and pick it. And previously, let me confess, previously I was always willing, I wanted to sell it to them and make money from it. But when I started working on e-waste and I realized that most of these things, after recycling them, the recyclers are even running at a loss, then I just give them away because I don't have to. I mean, I'm also contributing to making the environment more sustainable. So I just want to talk about this. If you think that it is too small or whatever these steps are too small for you to make a difference, then try sleeping in a room with a mosquito. You know how one mosquito can stress your life when you try to sleep in the night. So our actions, it doesn't matter whether it is returning the phone or repairing it or whatever, spreading awareness, they can all help to make the issue of e-waste and urban mining better. So what are some other things that are happening in Ghana currently when it comes to the issues of urban mining? We already know about the issue of agbogbloshen. We've seen so many pictures. And then at Mountain Research Institute, where I used to work, we're also doing a lot of awareness creation and education. Then we also have recyclers like upcyclers and electro-recycling in Ghana. And for them, they are building safer and scaling up solutions with training. And they're also doing community partnerships. So these are some of the things that are support. And then there is also this KFW incentive collection. I'll talk about it in the next slide. Then we also have some projects by World Bank, and some of them I directly worked on. So with the World Bank project, we're doing like trying to find out if the World Bank wants to set up collection centers. How will stakeholders want these collection centers to be? So we did we collected data on what the stakeholders wanted. We interacted with a couple of MMDAs. We went to different regions that they wanted to set up these collection centers. The findings have been given to them, and so they will set up collection centers soon. I haven't followed up on the work since I left, and I hope that when these collection centers are set up, we can always have access to places where we can send our electronics or end-of-life electronics. And there's also the e-waste fund in Ghana that is collecting funds or levies on new electronics. And the reason they are doing this is to support the recycling of electronics when they come to the end of life. And then we also have MEST, I hear now it's MEST and EPA, who also have regulatory frameworks on how e-waste and other hazardous waste should be managed. And then there are also collection centers. EPA have to certify these collection centers for people to send their e-waste there. And then we also have the MMDAs that are collaborating with scrap dealers within their jurisdiction to support their activities. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this KFW incentive collection is because most people don't know that there's something on incentive e-waste collection. And the beauty about this project is that they are not competing with the recyclers for those e-waste that can be easily recycled. E-waste is a very problematic waste type because it is very special and recycling is very difficult. So they are collecting those fractions that are very hazardous and not easy to recycle. Or let's look at it this way, they are collecting those ones that when recyclers recycle, they won't make any money from it. So they give incentives and people bring them. So all those cables that used to be bent at agbogbloshen, most of them are now being diverted under this project. And they are collecting 4 e-waste types, lithium-ion batteries, e-waste plastics, copper, and there's a third one I've forgotten that one. So ideally, this is what the integrated e-waste management scheme in Ghana is supposed to look like. We have from the household or wherever the e-waste is being generated, then it goes to a repair shop or it goes to the collector. Then when the collector takes it, they also take it to the collection center or from the electronics repair shop. Most of us, when we take our electronics for repair, we don't even go for them. We just leave them there. So they can also take it to the collection center. Then from the collection center, it is also transported to a national holding center. And there is the National Holding Center for E-Waste in Ghana is located around Gayek, Hachu. So they take it to the National Holding Center, and then from there it is transported again to either a recycler or exported to e-waste. They export the components of the e-waste. So currently, this is the EPA Integrated E-Waste Management Scheme that they have developed, and this is how the flow of e-waste is supposed to be. So why do we have to do urban mining? I think that if we are saying encouraging people to do urban mining and talking about recovering precious minerals from urban mining, we also need to know why we are doing this. And it helps to reduce the demand for new raw materials. So the gold that we retrieve from electronics is the same as the gold that we get when we dig the environment or when we dig the land. So if we're able to recover them from waste, why should we dig the environment again? And then, so if we're able to also promote urban mining, it helps to reduce pollution of water, air, land, and all of those other things. They're all preserved when we do urban mining. And then it reduces toxic exposure to recycling. So when we look at the way people are handling waste, especially e-waste in Ghana now, it is not the best, but if we're able to promote sustainable urban mining practices, then it will help to reduce the exposure that people have to recycling. And then, of course, it creates jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, and it's also a source of livelihood to a lot of people. In conclusion, e-waste is like a modern gold mine, but we have to dig it the right way. And then when we talk about urban mining, I want you to remember, if you don't take anything away from today's presentation, but anytime you hear urban mining, I want you to remember, like, it's a hidden gold mine, and it is safer than Galamsey, and it is better for people and the planet. And then in Ghana, I saw people getting rich from urban mining. And in my research, I'm also looking at how the systems are connecting. But today, I also believe that every one of us have a role to play when it comes to urban mining in our city. So instead of mining our rivers, our land, our polluting the air and everything, we can always mine the cities. And then urban mining should not just be a buzzword. We shouldn't just be using it. It sounds so fancy and all of that, but we can practice it every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Betty, for such a thought-provoking presentation. Let's take some questions from participants.
Mr. Omar, I think you can speak.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Miss Betty, thank you for your presentation. My question is, if I have interest in practicing urban mining, what are some of the common valuable metals available in e-waste that I can consider in my pursuit? Thank you.
So there are a lot of rare elements that you can find in electronics, and I highlighted some of them here. There is gold, there is copper, there's silver, there's lithium, there is nickel, zinc. Just mention them. It depends, different electronics, but these are the common ones. But the different electronics also have different precious metals that you can retrieve from them. But these are just some of the common ones.
Okay, thank you. So now, if the interest is on these valuable metals, what happened to the toxic ones?
Okay, so the toxic ones, this is always a tough question. Most of the recycling facilities don't have recycling options for most of these toxic e-waste fractions. And that is one of the reasons why the KFW project is currently collecting those fractions. Because if you leave them to the recyclers, they are private individuals upcyclers and co, they want to make money. They have to pay their employees and pay for operational cost and everything. So they will always choose the most economically viable options for them. Unfortunately, for some of these things, we don't really have recycling options for them. I know that some of the batteries, for instance, that have been collected under the KFW project are still there because they are looking for recyclers who can prove that they can recycle them in environmentally sustainable manner. So if you go to GAEC currently, where the e-waste, the holding center, you find a lot of, let me see if I can find a photo and show you. You see that some of the, most of the things that are collected are still there. If you look at the third
copper
photo,
wires.
yeah, with the sacks and everything, though all of those are cables that have been collected. And because people have not been able to prove that they can recycle them sustainably, they are still there until people can say that this is how we want to recycle and this is what will happen to the hazardous fractions. Yeah.
That's
I don't know
great.
if you've answered your question, but
Yeah. So just to add up onto Mr. Betty's, Miss Betty remarks. So mostly when it comes to urban mining, as she directly made mention, she started with gold, right? So currently, with all electronic devices that we have, especially with the mobile phones and laptops, there are various gold components within those devices. Here, it is called urban mining because it goes through a whole lot of scientific metallurgy, where we call it hydrometallurgy and most of those aspects, to basically extract those gold components, right? So now it is now becoming a more scientific based method instead of going into landfills or basically going into mining in our water bodies or anything of that sort. We can literally recover gold from most of these devices. So basically, that's it. And regarding to the toxic component, Betty, I think you've forgotten of this. There's Zoel. So Zoel in Ghana basically handles all toxic hazardous components of electronic waste, right? So especially with the batteries, with various bulbs and all of those aspects, Zoel basically manage it. So it is really advised, mostly when we go for workshops, they tell us that all the toxic components that we do not have the capacity in recycling, we store them in a safer space whereby we are then expected to transport it into the accredited hazardous facilities to basically recycle most of this waste. Yeah.
Thank you. So,
yeah, listen, Mr. Omar.
okay, yes. So, considering the heterogeneous nature of e-waste, for instance, you mentioned laptop. When you pick it, you have or maybe toxic metals that are found in them. So how can we be able to do this kind of recycling, considering the cost that might be involved and technical expertise that might be involved? So as we are, it's clear that we are still learning, and then we are trying to get ourselves to understand that there's value in these materials. So my point is too heterogeneous and needs a lot of expertise and cost. So how do we tackle that?
okay, so I think that individually is not for us to tackle. I mean, e-waste is, and the issue, one of the challenges with e-waste is that even though it has been there for some time now, it is also considered as one of the newest waste types. And a lot, even though we have like some recycling methods and other things, there are still a lot of trial and errors going on with what to do with most of the fractions. So it's not an individual thing that you and I can sit in our homes and easily do. That is why we have to take them to the appropriate places for it to be handled professionally. It's not like plastic bottles or other things. Most of them cannot be repurposed or you can't like repurpose or you reuse them in your home when they come to their end of life. You just have to get rid of them.
Okay, thank you for this response. I actually asked this question because you started your presentation by asking what we would do with a spoiled mobile phone when it is given to us. So I hope you understand where my question is coming from.
Yeah, I get it
Thank
now.
you.
And I forgot to talk about the mobile phones, and there are also people who are collecting end of life mobile phones. So that's what they do. Yeah, so if you have end of life mobile phones, you can contact Upcyclers and they'll show you where to take it if they're not taking it.
We do
Thank you very much, Ms.
provide
Betty.
them.
I'm very grateful.
Great. So, Mr. Nasigri, you can unmute and ask your question, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My point is just on the last presentation of Madam. It's like she put a sentence on urban mining being a little bit better than the gold that we mine in our forest reserve, which I am not clear in terms of that statement. If you look at these e-waste that we're talking of, people that are involved, health aspect of them are at risk. Then our environment in terms of pollution of air and then our water bodies too are also issues that we battle with in terms of this e-waste. So I want some clarification in terms of that statement.
Which
Then
statement
other,
exactly? Do you remember the slide number?
I think yeah, before the conclusive aspect of it, before the conclusive aspect of it, I saw something like that, which you spoke about urban mining being a little bit better than the gold mine that we do. And then my next issue has to do with livelihoods in terms of people that are involved with this e-waste. They get their livelihood through this work that they do. So what other remedies are we proposing in terms of livelihood for these people that are engaged in it? That's my point.
Okay, so from what we are encouraged, I'll start with the second question. What we are encouraging is that we are not asking people to stop doing what they are already doing. If you look at the KFW project that I talked about, instead of people burning the e-waste to go and recover the metals, they just bring the e-waste to the KFW project without burning them. And even though the prices that are being offered are a little lower than when they burn and take it to the black market, it makes sense to them because now you don't have to burn them. So the project is collecting them. They're not saying stop what you are doing, continue doing it, but don't burn them. Just bring them to us and collect your incentive. That is what they are doing. So for me, one of the things that I believe in is that the informal sector should not stop what they are doing. Because when you look at the e-waste value chain from collection, it is the informal sector that is like more able to do collection of e-waste than any other person. The informal sector, they know all the skills, the strategies, the techniques that they can use to recover e-waste wherever they are. So we are not saying they should stop collection. They should collect, but they should not dismantle. And after collection, they should take them to the certified collection centers so that they can take their incentives from there. So the issue of livelihoods will not be affected even if we encourage people to still, if we encourage projects like the KFW incentive collection system. And then you were talking about the fact that I said urban mining is better than primary mining. I don't remember saying that. If I said that, then it was an oversight. What I'm only saying is that urban mining is better than Galamsey, where we are.
Yes. That's just what I wanted to
And that's
reference
what
to.
I mean. But
Yes.
I'm not, urban mining is not better than primary
Yeah.
mining. I mean, they're
Sorry
all,
for putting you wrong. Sorry for
no, that's
putting you wrong. But that,
fine.
yes.
Don't go and quote me anywhere. I didn't say anything. Before I wake up tomorrow and then I'm trending on Twitter, I beg.
Yes. Sorry. I think that's what I wanted to reference to.
Yeah.
So
Great.
No,
So
I don't
just an
understand.
add up onto what Ms. Betty made mention. So literally, the reason why most of this galamsey is currently ongoing is gold, right? But here we are also sitting on various gold components, which is literally going waste. You understand? Most of the gold components in our laptops or mobile phones are literally getting into the landfills, moving downwards to the soil and water bodies, right? So there is the need in also paying much more attention into seeing how these valuable materials can be extracted for most of these various electronic devices that we are sitting on, instead of paying much more attention to the galamsey, which is all over. So I think it is also a collective responsibilities of us joining on this webinar to also voice out. I think one of the very core thing we advocate is also ensuring that the youth, we basically advocate for most of these things. Literally, there is a whole lot of investment into galamsey, but then if we are channeling most of this investment into investing in recovering these minerals from electronic waste, there is value here. Okay, there is big value here. So that's basically the flip side of the coin that we literally have to be aware of, and then we'll be able to do something about that. I think we have Madam Heroin hand up. You can basically unmute and ask your question. I think your name is the Heroin with a red shirt background.
Vida, I think I know her. Vida, please ask your question.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it's
A mistake.
not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have Mr. Naziru's question here. Miss Betty, how much gold can we get from e-waste compared to earth mining? Are they comparable at all? If yes, why don't the investors channel more into e-waste mining, which would have more cost effective?
Oh, that's a tough one. So, like I mentioned, e-waste recycling is very complex because most of the electronics are made of different components. They are made of, sometimes you take one device, you take maybe your computer, and you find different components. The computer is made of plastic, it is made of glass, it is made of gold, so it is very difficult to recycle. And if you want to recycle, you first have to break it down and sort the different components before you can start the recycling. And it is very expensive. That is why most of the countries in the global north would package them as secondhand and bring them to countries in the global south. And from experience and from literature, you realize that in the global south, we are specialized in dismantling, whether it is whether it is done appropriately or inappropriately, you still recover whatever mineral that it is that you need from those electronics. So it is very expensive and difficult to recycle, and that is why most people would rather not invest in this type of mining. But now we are trying to advocate that instead of, the resources it takes so many years, over 200 years, for gold to form in the earth. So if there is the option of retrieving it from our phone, why don't we just do that? Because a time will come when we will not have them. We have one professor who used to joke that you and I will never see the formation of gold in our lifetime if we run out of gold now. So it's going to take a very long time for these resources to be formed. And for me, it's not always about, it shouldn't just be the question of which one is which one is cheaper to do, but it should be which one is more sustainable, because the value is the same. The value is basically the same.
Great. We have Dr. hand up. Doc, you can speak.
Thank you. I just wanted to add a little bit to what Betty said, and in response to the question about the comparability of gold. Yes, when you look at e-waste gold component, you know, the gold component in e-waste is, in terms of purity, is very high, often around 99.9%. I think, as Betty said, it's just about the volume or the quantum of gold you find in these items and how best we can extract them. You know, the earth gold, once you dig, you find the nuggets, you wash, you have it. But the e-waste bit is a bit different. And that goes into I just wanted to add that, yes, you can compare them. The gold in e-waste, industrial gold, is purer, but it's just about extracting them and how to go about doing all of that. That's just what I wanted to add. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doc. Madam Vida, you can unmute and speak.
All right. Thank you. The name is Heroine, not Heroine. Heroine, hero, and then Heroine.
Oh, okay. Nice.
All right. So, Dr. Betty, since you said most of the urban places, or what was the word? Like the villages, let me.
Okay. The
Mm-hmm.
rural areas.
Rural areas. I think I am also around that area, and I have 1 or 2 gadgets that are on standby. I don't even know how to dispose them of. I don't want to just pick it and go and throw it somewhere. I have a TV and then a phone, so they are just relaxing in my room. And I'm found in the northern part of Ghana, precisely Upper East, your Kingsland. I don't know where I'll go and sell these gadgets and pick up my money in a gold form. Anyhow.
Agabus, this one I'm throwing it to you. Please go and collect the TV and the phone and pay her 5 cedis. You can contact Upcyclers. They do collection, so, and they are in Tamale, so they will connect with you and see how they can arrange to get those items picked up.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So hello, Doc. Just to add up.
Okay.
What is the value comparable to the real gold itself, as we are talking about? What is the value in terms of money aspect?
Okay, so what I know is that I have a colleague I used to work with in Ghana, and when he collects a mobile phone, he was like, he will give you 5 cedis for each mobile phone that he takes. I don't know how much Upcyclers and other people are taking for those ones, but a mobile phone that is no longer working, and it has to come like a full mobile phone. You don't have to take anything from it. You get 5 cedis for that one. But I don't know for the other electronics.
Oh, okay. Yes. Then my TV can get up to 100 cedis.
Like I explained earlier, so when you look at the cost of recycling, especially the fat bottles TV, the one they call TV Etikopo, the CRC.
That one.
When you look at the amount of money that is needed to recycle that television, they don't even have to pay you when they collect it. You have to pay them so that they can recycle it for you.
Wow. That's okay.
Madam Susan, you can speak.
Okay, thank you so much to our presenters. In fact, I've learned a lot today. But with someone like me having a health background, I want to find out, when you go to Aboguloshi, mostly where the condemned guys send the electronic waste for them to burn and pick out whatever they want. I want to find out, is there any enough education going on for those guys at Aboguloshi, mostly who do the burning? Because we see them burn these things without wearing any, even if they wear, but it's not the appropriate PPEs, okay, and they inhale a lot of toxins, which in future would give them some respiratory tract infection. So I would want to find out, is there any education going on for them to safeguard their health in future? And if yes, how is it enough? Is the education enough for them? That's my question.
Okay, so before Agbogbuloshi was demolished, in brackets, in quotes, we used to have this facility there, a GIZ facility, where they were taking them through regular training. There were people there, and every week their job was just to train the people on how to do the dismantling safely. Unfortunately, the facility, Agbogbuloshi, has been demolished, and the scrap dealers are no longer operating there. But I know that there's been a lot of education and training on how to properly handle some of these electronic when they are dismantling. And like I mentioned earlier, right now the emphasis is not on the dismantling. They are trying to just teach them, you go and collect and bring them to us, we will do the dismantling. That's also one of the ways that they are trying to protect them. But it is surprising that sometimes these people, it's not that they don't know, they know the effects of whatever they are doing. They know that if they burn without protective clothes, PPEs or whatever, it's still going to affect them. But they are like, we've been doing this thing for long, nothing has happened to us. So they'll continue doing it. Before I left Ghana, we had this, I was having an interaction with somebody from City Waste, and she was telling me about how they had provided PPEs for people that are usually at the dam site. So when they bring the boiler, they sort them out and tell them. The people never wear the PPEs. It is the day they are coming for inspection that you will see them wearing the PPEs, wearing the boots, and they will tell you that no, the boots, when they wear the boots, they cannot run quickly to go, and when the truck comes, they can't walk fast. And by the time they get there, some other people have taken all the waste from the volume or whatever they are trying to retrieve. So the education is ongoing. Sometimes they know, they just don't, I mean, it's not convenient for them, so they do what is more convenient for them.
Yeah, great. So just to add up on the education, we personally do a lot of education when it comes to this field. I think last year, together with GIZ, we educated over 100 scrap dealers in Tamale on best practices in dismantling, putting various measures in place and wearing PPEs, and also identifying various hazardous and toxic components in electronic waste. So we do a bit of most of these educational campaigns, but trust me, Ghana is over 32 million, and most of these scrap dealers are currently over 100,000. So we need a lot of hands to basically get to the grassroots of these operations. So as you rightfully made mentioned, we are looking forward to most of you guys who have the basic background in most of these backgrounds and criteria to kind of collaborate. You personally can have such an initiative for yourself, and you'll be able to reach out to these guys, provide the necessary information, education for them, then they'll be able to do something about that. So we are fully open for most of these engagement, and then we highly encourage that. Great. Madam Abiatu, please, you can unmute and talk.
Okay, thank you. A lot of education from our facilitators. My question is going to be tied to Susan's question a bit. You have spoken about the education part of the whole e-waste and all, but what is the legislation like around e-waste? What are the laws like? And what is the enforcement system like? Because I feel with the kind of education they are getting, there should be laws backing, what they do, the collection and the enforcement of those laws. Because like Susan has mentioned, when it comes to health-related issues in e-waste, it's crazy. Betty mentioned that some of them have been doing it for so many years, and because there's no effect, whatever you go to say, they just look at it as though, oh, my grandfather was doing this, she lived long, so what do you mean we should wear this to protect ourselves? It's going to do nothing. So I want to just know the legislation. I am quite green when it comes to e-waste. Yes, so I want to know what are the legislation regimes around e-waste? What are the laws surrounding e-waste, and how is the enforcement like?
Is Dr. Michael still on the call? I think he mentioned some of it. Doc, if you're on the call, would you want to answer this?
Okay, thank you very much, Rabia, too, for the question. When it comes to legislations, there are tons of them. Okay, so there are regulatory frameworks, there are policies, there are legislations. Okay, these are three different things altogether, but not to confuse you. Let me just put all of them together and call them laws. And so there are laws. There are lots of them, from health to environment to governance to all of that. I think one thing we often lose sight is these laws set up institutions. And one thing that often we find missing is institutional coordination and collaboration. Okay, if you see e-waste as something belonging to one institution, I think Betty mentioned MEST or MESTI. So within MESTI, there are agencies, there are departments. So EPA is found under MESTI. You see, when you go within EPA, there are other units. So the issue is not really the absence or the presence of laws, but as you mentioned, it's about who is supposed to do what at what point in time. That is why in Abublushi you have GIZ. So there's a technical guideline on regulating the whole sector. So you go to GIZ. GIZ at a point in time works with the health directorate when it comes to health issues. But if it has to do with the environmental issue, what it means is that GIZ would have to deal with EPA or the environmental health and sanitation unit. So at times there's a whole disconnect among the institutions as to who is doing what. And the moment that thing comes in, there's a problem who enforces what. And so what we often see in many of the local sites is that the local assemblies at a point in time want to take up that responsibility because they are city managers. But what you often forget is that e-waste goes beyond their capacity to do so. Okay, so the challenge from as a governance person, as a planning person, has to do with institutional coordination and collaboration. Who does what at a point in time, and who do we collaborate with to enforce which law? Because the acts or the laws are meant for certain institutions to do some things. If Honestly, if we should really go into nitty-gritty, I think it will be a whole lecture on its own. But that's what I would just say. It's just institutional disconnect as to who does what at what point in time, who do we collaborate with to address what issues. I think those are the things that are missing within our governance space. Thank you.
Okay, so just to add, just to follow up to the answer. Now that we know where the challenge is, what are the measures you are putting in, to, I don't want to say cap, but what are the measures we are putting in? We know the institutions and those supposed to do the things. What are the measures to make sure they are enforcing those laws?
Okay,
Yes.
so I
Okay,
think
yeah.
I'll take that.